Hello, I am Caleb Ezel, and I will be showing you how to do an oil change on a Toro Grandstand. To start, we're going to need to jack up the mower. I always jack from the back left side. Lifts the mower up so that you can get a good flow from the other side. Then, once you have that, you're going to go back and grab your oil pan. Grab your oil pan and you're going to put it under the hose here. It should just slide right under there. Just like that. To complete the oil change, you will need 2 11/16 wrenches to your oil filter wrench, 2 quarts of 10W30 oil, your Kohler oil filter. Normally, it will be a yellow color. You're gonna grab your 2 11/16 wrench. On the grandstands, your drain hose will be right here, just on the front side of the engine. You're gonna take 1 wrench and put it on the back side. This allows you to stop spinning this whole nipple here, and then grab this nut with your other wrench. Then you're gonna apply opposite pressure, lefty-loosey. Just like that. Then you should be able to just unscrew the nut. There you are. Then your oil will begin draining into the pan. Then you're gonna grab your oil filter wrench. You're gonna go to right by the hose is your oil filter here. You're gonna grab it with your wrench. They're normally relatively loose, and twist. And then should be loose enough to hand loosen. Just like that. Then you're gonna dump all the oil out and throw that in the scrap bin. Then you're gonna grab your Kohler oil filter. Take the plastic off of your filter and you're gonna dip your finger in the oil. Once you got a good amount on your finger there, rub it around the seal and you're gonna screw that back on. Just enough till it's hand tight. Then you're gonna grab your oil cap. You're gonna put that right back in the hose. Just like that. Then you're gonna grab your 2 wrenches again. Do the same thing you just did. This time, you're just gonna tighten it. As good as you can go. Next, you're gonna grab your funnel and 2 quarts of 10W30 oil. Then you're gonna go to your oil fill location here. You're gonna unscrew that. This also has your dipstick on it for the future. Then you're gonna put your funnel in the hole. Unscrew your oil. And pour it in. Toro Grandstand will normally take 2 quarts of oil. That's 1. And cheers to number 2. Down the hatch. Get all the drips out. Then you're gonna take your funnel out and shake it. Get all the oil out and wipe it off. Then you're gonna test your oil level. Normally an engine is sideways. so your first one will not be accurate. So you're gonna wipe that first off, put it back in, and there's your oil reading. Want it just at the top of that fill line, just like that. Then you're gonna screw it back in. Then you're gonna take your bucket of oil and go dump it in the blue jug outside. Here's your blue jug. And you're gonna dump it right in this hole here. Try your best not to miss. And just like that, you change your oil. For your next task, you're gonna need your Kohler fuel filter and a vice grip. Once you're here, you're gonna find your fuel filter right here, just in front of the engine. Vice grip these clamps just by the ears and move it back just off the nipple in here. Same with the other side. Just like that. Then you're gonna slowly shake off your fuel filter. Keep this line up and vertical as much as you can. It'll stop the fuel from coming out as much. This is future me. To stop the fuel from flowing out of your line as fast as it did, just go ahead and clamp this line with your vice grips when you're not using them. Just like that. Then you're gonna grab your fuel filter and you're gonna insert that back into your lines. Then, just like you did at the start, you're gonna grab your vice grips again, grab the ears of the clamps, and move them right back on those nipples. Just like that. On to your next task. Your next task is the air filter. The air filter is a two-piece air filter. You have your main filter here, and this works as an air filter, but as well as a guard for this one. This is your healthy air filter, and this is your air filter on drugs. Next, you're gonna unclip these clips on your air filter, storage here. One there, and one on the bottom here. Then you're gonna pull your cover off and take your filter out. For video's sake and for training, I am gonna put in the new filter, but I will show you guys. This filter is still okay. This one's fairly new. No holes, no nothing. And with this one, there's a little dirt on it. Normally, you can just take a compressor and a little air gun and blow it off. Then you're gonna take your new filter, you're gonna insert your first small one into your storage. Then you're gonna take your big one and put it right over it. Just like that. Then you're gonna grab your cover again. Normally, you know it's the right way if the Kohler is upright. Pop it right back on there and clip it back in. On to the next task. Your next task is inspecting or replacing your spark plugs. For this, you will need a 9/16 socket, we'll get to this one later, and a 16 mil socket. As well as 2 spark plugs. You're gonna take your impact with your 16 mil socket, and you're gonna pop this cap of the spark plug off, just like that. Then, preferably, you get a deep socket, so you can reach in there and unscrew your spark plug. This is what you're looking for on a bad spark plug. This sheet will be right above all the Milwaukee tools on the sidewall here. This spark plug that we pulled out, pretty burnt up at the end, so we will replace this one. You're gonna take your spark plug out of your box, and you're gonna thread it back into the hole. Normally hand tighten it until you struggle to. Take your impact, tighten it till you hear the click, just like that. Then you're gonna take your spark plug cap and plop that right back on. Your next spark plug is on the back side of the engine here. Obviously you can't see it. First, we're gonna loosen these. These will only be on the grandstands. They're on both sides. You're gonna move these washers out of the groove. Just pop out like that, as well as the other side. Then, you can pop this cover right off, and this will allow you to get to your bracket and your fuel tank. Then, you're gonna get your 9/16 socket, and you're gonna undo these bolts. Then, you're gonna grab your fuel tank and kind of shimmy it out of there. And just kind of lay it against your mower. This next spark plug is a little bit tricky to get to. So you'll need this extension here to go onto your 16 mil socket. Your next spark plug will be right here. So again, pop off the cap. Makes it a little bit easier. You put the extension on first. Then fit your impact in here. And unscrew it. And there's your next spark plug. This one, pretty foul, so we'll replace this one as well. Then you're gonna grab your other spark plug, take it out of the box, and thread that into your hole. This one will be a little bit harder to reach. Again, take your extension, put that on first. And impact in your spark plug. Just till it clicks. Just like that. Then grab your plug and push that back on. For your next task, you'll need a flathead screwdriver. Here are both of your cooling fans that you'll need to clean. If you noticed, both of these fans are covered in dirt on the top. This is a sign of a dirty fan. It can cause overheating or sometimes fan failure. Then you're gonna take your flathead screwdriver and kind of just poke at them. Just loosen up that dirt a little bit. Just kind of flick it out. Till all the dirt in your fan is loose. Just like that, where it's all resting on the top. And then it always helps when you guys power wash, pressure wash these. Next, You're gonna grab an air gun and connect it to the compressor. Then you're gonna take your air gun and you're just gonna spray out the top of the fan here. Then you're gonna grab your impact again with your 9/16 socket. Go ahead and put back in the fuel tank. Grab your bracket. Should go like that, where the indent is on the bottom here. You wanna go ahead and hand thread those in first. Makes it a little bit easier if you just impact in the first two. And then put in your third or your fourth if you have one. Then you're gonna grab your padding and pull that back up. Put it right back on the hinges here. Pop those plastic washers back in your groove, just like that, as well as the other side. Then thread the knobs back in, just till they're tight. In this video, you learned how to change your oil, change your fuel filter, change your air filter, change your spark plugs, and clean your cooling fans. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment your favorite moment.